The truth that everyone feared but no one dared to speak was finally about to come out. Karoline Leavitt had been preparing for this moment, which she had been referring to on social media as the big revelation for days. A suitcase full of documents would expose the 10-year operations of George Soros, the world's most powerful liberal financier. Breaths were held in the studio, time stood still, and then Leavitt began to speak. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. On a hot evening in June, in Fox News' Washington studio, Karoline Leavitt was sitting under the stage lights. The 27-year-old White House press secretary was calm in her carefully chosen red suit, but the determination in her gaze was striking. A black briefcase sat on her desk. Its contents had been speculated about for days. "Welcome to Hannity," said host Sean Hannity, looking at the camera. "Tonight we're presenting a special program. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt is here for the big revelation she's been talking about on social media for days." The camera turned to Leavitt, who smiled slightly. "Thank you, Sean. Yes, I've shared some hints in recent days, and today it's time to explain everything." "You implied on social media that you have documents related to George Soros," said Hannity, leaning forward. "Is this true?" Leavitt nodded, reaching for her briefcase. "Not just George Soros, Sean. I have evidence showing how his financial empire has influenced U.S. politics." A tense silence fell over the studio. Even the technical crew stopped their work to look at the screens. This was no ordinary interview. The secrets of one of Washington's most powerful figures were about to be revealed. Leavitt pulled out the first file from her bag, a folder with a red stamp. These documents chronicle the secret operations of the Open Society Foundations, especially during the 2020 and 2024 elections. "How did you obtain these documents?" asked Hannity, his tone somewhat skeptical. "They were delivered to me by a source," said Leavitt. "This person is a high-level employee of Soros organizations. He refuses to give his name, but the documents are completely real and verifiable." Hannity raised his eyebrows. "Karoline, this is a serious claim. Democrats will accuse you of spreading fake news." Leavitt smiled confidently. "That's why we had each document verified by independent organizations before publishing. The authenticity of each one can be proven." She showed the first document to the camera, a list of complex financial transfers, millions of dollars in donations, records of secret meetings. These documents show that George Soros controls far more media organizations than we thought, not just news networks but social media platforms too. Hannity examined the first document, his eyes widening. "This is incredible. CNN, MSNBC, they're all here. And these figures? And this is just the beginning," said Leavitt, pulling out another folder. "Now I'm going to show you Soros's operation called Project Phoenix." Just then, Leavitt's phone rang. She looked at the screen and frowned. "George Soros's lawyers are calling," she said to Hannity, turning off her microphone. "How quick they are." Hannity smiled. "They must be scared. Are you going to answer?" "No," said Leavitt. "America has the right to know the truth first." When the camera came back on, Leavitt had opened the second folder. Project Phoenix is a secret operation launched in 2022. Its purpose is to create a special fund to influence elected judges and prosecutors. According to these documents, 36 federal judges have been under the influence of this operation so far. This revelation sent shockwaves through the studio. Even the camera crew looked at each other in astonishment. Hannity cleared his throat. "This is a very serious accusation, Karoline. Are there names?" Leavitt pulled out a third folder. "Yes, there are. And not just names, but a scheme as well. A scheme showing how connections were established, which cases were influenced." In the management floor of Fox News, a crisis meeting had already begun. Vice President Lawrence Turner was talking on the phone while watching the screen. "Yes, we're reviewing it in real time. Yes, these are indeed very serious allegations. No, we won't stop it yet." Meanwhile, in elite circles in Washington, D.C., phones were ringing nonstop, messages were flying. Richard Palmer, president of the Open Society Foundations, had already initiated the emergency protocol. Immediately check the authenticity of Leavitt's documents and prepare a press release. We're not denying, but saying we've been misinterpreted. In the studio, Leavitt pulled out a fourth folder, this time blue. And now we come to the most important part, Soros's technology investments. Technology? Asked Hannity. Not just social media, said Leavitt. Artificial intelligence, election systems, data mining. These documents show Soros's secret investments in AI companies, especially one called Quantum Insight. Hannity examined the file. Quantum Insight? I've never heard anything about this company. Because they deliberately keep a low profile, said Leavitt. But this company has developed an algorithm that has access to 68% of voter data in America. And this algorithm determines who you see on social media, which news reaches you. At this point, Leavitt's phone was constantly vibrating. Messages, calls, emails were pouring in. Democratic strategists, liberal media organizations, even Soros himself were following the event. In his luxury apartment in New York, 94-year-old George Soros was watching television, with a worried expression on his face. His assistant Mark Cohen was taking notes frantically beside him. Where could she have found these documents? Asked Soros, his voice trembling slightly. We don't know yet, said Cohen. But the legal team is ready. They're trying to stop the broadcast. Soros shook his head. Too late. It's now in the public domain. In the Fox News studio, a commercial break was approaching. Hannity turned to the audience. Before we go to commercial, Karoline, what do you think about the consequences of these documents? Leavitt looked directly at the camera, her eyes gleaming with determination. These documents show not just the power of one man, but the workings of a system. George Soros himself may not have violated legal boundaries, but the network he created threatens the foundations of American democracy. Will you show more documents after the commercial? Asked Hannity. Yes, said Leavitt. And I can already say that the documents I'll show after the commercial could end the political careers of some Democratic senators. The cameras shut off, the commercial began, but social media had already begun to explode. The hashtag #Soros documents entered Twitter trends within minutes. Fox News' website was about to crash due to viewer traffic, and this was just the beginning of the storm. When the commercial break ended in the Fox News studio, viewership had reached record levels. Social media platforms were flooded with hashtags, Soros documents, and Leavitt exposes. From Washington to New York, Los Angeles to Chicago, millions of Americans were waiting in front of their screens for Karoline Leavitt's next revelation. Welcome back to Hannity, said Sean Hannity, turning to the camera. We continue with White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt. Karoline, before the commercial you mentioned documents that could end the careers of some Democratic senators. Leavitt nodded, pulling out a new green folder from her briefcase. This file documents a secret operation called Project Circle. This project shows that 5 Democratic senators received indirect funding from George Soros's organizations. Can you disclose their names? Asked Hannity, leaning forward excitedly. Of course, said Leavitt, opening the file. Senator James Hartwell, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Senator Mark Kelly, Senator Raphael Warnock, and Senator Catherine Cortez. Masto. A wave of shock spread through the studio. These names were among the most powerful senators in the Democratic Party. Is this funding illegal? Asked Hannity. Not directly, said Leavitt. But here's how it works. Soros's foundations transfer money to an organization called the Citizen Participation Fund. This organization sends money to another group called the Clean Democracy Movement. And finally, this money reaches super PACs supporting the campaigns of the mentioned senators. Leavitt showed a diagram on the screen, a network showing complex money flows. This system may be legal, but it's certainly not transparent. And more importantly, these senators never disclosed this connection. In fact, they all claim to be independent from Soros. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., Senator James Hartwell's office was in crisis mode. Hartwell sat in front of the screen with a pale face, watching Leavitt's statements. Damn it, he shouted, punching the table. Where did this woman find this information? Nobody knew about this money flow. Press advisor Sarah Rodriguez was taking notes frantically. "Senator, we need to make a statement immediately. Fox is burning everything down." "What will we say?" asked Hartwell, running his hands through his hair. "We can't deny it, can we? If the documents are real—" "We need to verify their authenticity first," said Rodriguez. "But for now, we can say they are legal political donations." At the same minutes in Massachusetts, Senator Elizabeth Warren was also having a similar meeting. But her approach was different. "We can turn this around," she told her team. "Yes, we received support from liberal organizations. What's shameful about that? We're going on the counterattack. We'll accuse Leavitt and Fox of trying to smear us." In New York, George Soros's lawyers were in an emergency meeting. Chief Attorney Richard Goldstein was talking to Soros on the phone. "We need to file a lawsuit," said Goldstein. "We can claim that these documents were obtained illegally." "Are the documents real?" asked Soros, his voice calm but tense. Goldstein paused for a moment. "Yes, they appear to be real, but we don't know yet how they were leaked." "Then filing a lawsuit might be even worse," said Soros. "It would draw more attention. Let's wait and see for now." In the Fox News studio, Leavitt was opening the 6th folder. This time it was black. "And now we come to the most striking documents," she said with a hint of excitement in her voice. "This file documents a program called the Media Steering Strategy. According to this program, Soros's organizations pay regular consulting fees to key journalists at major news organizations." Hannity's eyes widened. "Are there names?" "There are," said Leavitt. "Anderson Cooper from CNN, Rachel Maddow from MSNBC, Taylor Robertson from The Washington Post, and Michael Fisher from The New York Times. These names were the most famous faces of American media." The reaction on social media was immediate. Twitter was on the verge of crashing, Facebook groups were exploding, and the hashtag MediaBot was spreading on TikTok. At CNN headquarters, President Jeff Collins held an emergency meeting. "We need to get Cooper on screen. He needs to deny it immediately." "But we need to see the documents first," objected the legal advisor. "What if they're real? Does Cooper have such a source of income?" Collins hesitated. "I don't know. There could be side agreements not visible in the contracts." MSNBC was experiencing a similar panic. Rachel Maddow was arguing with her producer on the phone. "Yes, I received speaking fees from Open Society, but that's legal. They can't portray this as secret payments." In the Fox News studio, Hannity was deepening the topic. "Are these payments legal?" "Technically legal," said Leavitt, "but ethical. These journalists never disclosed the money they received. And moreover, they all claim to be impartial in their reporting about Soros." Leavitt opened the 7th folder, a file with a red stamp that read "Top Secret." "And now I'm showing the most important document, a memorandum titled American Transformation Project, signed by George Soros himself. The document, which the camera zoomed in on, was an internal correspondence dated 2019, bearing Soros's signature. Leavitt began to read the document aloud. "Our 5-year strategic plan to radically transform American society continues. We are making progress in our goal of influencing key positions in the judiciary, media, academia, and political system. By the 2024 elections, we aim to control 30% of the judiciary, 60% of mainstream media, and 45% of the federal bureaucracy." There was complete silence in the studio. Even Hannity looked shocked. This is like some kind of coup plan." "Not a coup," said Leavitt, "but certainly a plan to take over American institutions through means outside the democratic process. In Soros's own words, winning elections is not enough. We must change the system itself." At this point, the studio phones were ringing non-stop. Fox News' website had crashed, and the hashtag Our Soros Coup Plan was trending worldwide on social media. At the White House, President Trump sat watching the broadcast. With the White House Chief of Staff beside him, Trump smiled. "Leavitt is amazing. This girl is a treasure." "The counterattack has already begun," said the Chief of Staff, showing his phone. "CNN and MSNBC are claiming the documents are fake." "Leavitt anticipated this," said Trump. "Be patient. The third act has just begun." In the Fox News studio, Hannity checked an incoming message and raised his eyebrows. Karoline, according to information I just received, Soros's lawyers have sent a warning letter to Fox News. They want us to stop the broadcast. Leavitt smiled. I was expecting this, but they missed something. She pulled out the eighth and final folder. It was bright silver. This last file contains emails showing how Soros's lawyers applied threats and pressure. When the Wall Street Journal launched an investigation last year, the law firm Goldstein and Partners pressured and threatened the newspaper. Hannity's face had an expression of shock. A law firm threatened a newspaper? Not just threatened, said Leavitt. One of these emails says to the journal's editor, if you don't stop the Soros investigation, we will publish information that will affect your financial backers. This revelation created shockwaves in the studio and among viewers. This was no longer just a political scandal, but a media and legal scandal as well. In New York, George Soros was now yelling at his lawyers in a teleconference. How did she get those emails? This is impossible. It must be someone with access to the servers. It could be someone from inside, suggested the chief technology officer. Maybe Jack Chen, said Soros suddenly. The technology director who resigned last month. Talk to him right now. In the Fox News studio, Hannity was preparing to end the program. Our final question, Karoline. What do you expect to happen after publishing these documents? Leavitt looked directly at the camera. Justice, transparency, and, most importantly, the American people's right to know the truth. These documents show how a single person or organization can overshadow democratic processes. This is not a party issue. This is a democracy issue. And you're holding a press conference at the White House tomorrow, right? Asked Hannity. Yes, said Leavitt. Tomorrow morning at 10:08, I will officially hand over all these documents to the Department of Justice and request an investigation. As the program ended, social media and news sites were already boiling. Experts were debating on CNN, hosts were denying on MSNBC, and the New York Times was preparing an extra edition. In Washington, D.C., the 5 mentioned senators were having an emergency conference call at midnight. None of us should respond individually, said Senator Hartwell. We will make a joint statement and say they were legal political donations. What about the media payments? Asked Senator Warnock. How will we defend Cooper and Maddow? We won't defend them, said Senator Warren. They will fight their own battles. We need to save ourselves. In New York, Soros's technology team was trying to find the source of the leaked information. Jack Chen's phone was unanswered. The former technology director's house was empty. All his social media accounts had been deleted. I found it, shouted the digital security expert. Chen's last access was 3 weeks ago. He downloaded exactly 30 TB of data. 30 TB? Asked Soros, with a shocked expression on his face. Our entire archive. Not just the archive, said the expert. Emails, contracts, plans, everything. Soros took a deep breath. Where is Chen now? The security chief responded, according to our latest information, in Washington, D.C. That night, as Karoline Leavitt was returning home, she received a message on her phone. The sender appeared as anonymous. Be careful at the press conference tomorrow. You will receive more documents from Chen. Soros will do everything to stop you. Stay safe. Leavitt read the message, smiled, and turned off her phone. The storm was just beginning. 2 hours later, at 3:28 in the morning, the Washington Post published a breaking news. George Soros coming to America to respond to Leavitt's revelations. And so, the end of the second act had been reached. The third act would be much more intense. The morning in Washington, D.C. didn't start like an ordinary day. The sky was covered with leaden clouds, as if nature itself sensed the importance of the day. The area around the White House was already filled with journalists, protesters, and curious crowds. Police barricades had been set up, security measures raised to the highest level. At 09:30, in the East Wing of the White House, Karoline Leavitt was preparing for the press conference. She was calm in her blue suit, but the sharpness in her eyes was striking. Beside her were 2 security officers, a lawyer, and a digital security expert. Are the final checks complete? Asked Leavitt, opening her computer. Digital security expert Eric Miller nodded. All documents have been backed up, uploaded to cloud servers, and sent to trusted sources around the world. No one can stop this information anymore. Were you able to track the message that came in last night? Asked Leavitt. Yes, said Miller. It definitely came from Chen. He communicated 3 more times last night, and you won't believe this, but he sent Soros's personal emails. Leavitt's eyes widened. His personal emails? Miller smiled. Yes, Soros's direct correspondence with Democratic Party leaders, some judges, and media bosses. These confirm everything we know and show even more. Where is Soros right now? Asked Leavitt. He landed at Andrews Air Force Base an hour ago with his private jet, said the security officer. He's currently in Washington, reportedly at the CNN building. Leavitt nodded. So he's preparing. Well, we're ready too. Meanwhile, at CNN headquarters, George Soros had gathered in a meeting room with Anderson Cooper, Rachel Maddow, and CNN President Jeff Collins. Despite his age, Soros's eyes still sparkled with sharp intelligence. This woman will destroy us, said Collins, showing the morning newspapers. All headlines were about the Soros documents. Calm down, said Soros, his voice surprisingly calm. I've weathered this kind of crisis before. Leavitt's documents may be real, but her interpretations are manipulative. We did everything within the legal framework. But the public won't understand that, said Cooper, worriedly. She's accusing me of receiving secret payments. My career is ruined. Nobody's career is ruined, said Soros firmly. Now listen, the strategy will be this. We don't deny, we confirm, but we reframe. Yes, we support liberal values. Yes, we want reform in media, academia, and judiciary. These aren't crimes, they are democratic rights. Maddow nodded. That makes sense. Also, we can emphasize that Leavitt has her own agenda, that she's the spokesperson of the Trump administration. Exactly, said Soros. And today, immediately after Leavitt's press conference, I will hold a press conference too. For the first time, I will appear in front of cameras and address the American people directly. This news surprised those in the room. Soros usually avoided cameras. Are you sure? Asked Collins. This could be risky. No gain without risk, said Soros, his eyes gleaming with determination. This 27-year-old little girl is threatening my empire. It's time to respond. Personally, at exactly 10 hours in the White House press room, all cameras were focused on Karoline Leavitt. The room was packed. CNN, Fox, MSNBC, BBC, Al Jazeera, all major news channels worldwide were broadcasting live. Leavitt approached the podium, adjusted the microphone, and began to speak. Good morning. I'm here to provide an update on the documents I revealed on Fox News last night. First, I want to announce that I have officially handed over all these documents to the Department of Justice and the FBI. I have submitted my formal request for an investigation. The crowd stirred, flashes popped. Second, there are new documents that reached me this morning. These documents show George Soros's direct communication with some federal judges in the U.S. In these correspondences, he offers advice about the outcomes of certain cases. Shockwaves spread through the room. Journalists frantically took notes. Cameramen competed to get close-ups. I will not disclose the names of these judges now, said Leavitt. This will be part of the ongoing investigation. But I can say that these judges are individuals who have ruled against Trump administration policies. Just then, there was a movement in the hall. A man stood up from the back rows, tall, slim, in a black suit. Jack Chen. Ms. Leavitt, said Chen, his voice audible, even from the back of the room. I want to give you more information. Security officers immediately moved, but Leavitt stopped them with a hand gesture. Mr. Chen, I presume, please approach. The room fell completely silent. Jack Chen, a Chinese-American in his mid-30s, walked down the corridor and came to Leavitt's side. He had an external hard drive in his hand. This disk, said Chen, contains Soros's entire digital archive. Not just documents, but audio recordings too. Meetings, phone conversations, everything is here. Leavitt took the disc and handed it to the security expert. "Why are you doing this, Mr. Chen?" Chen leaned into the microphone. "I worked as a technology director at the Open Society Foundations for 5 years. Initially, I believed in their mission. But over time, I saw the true nature of the operations. This is not a civil society organization. It's a power network. And I no longer want to be part of it." At the CNN building, Soros and his team were watching the live broadcast. Soros's face had turned ashen. "Chen," he shouted, "that traitor, audio recordings too? This is a disaster. We need to change the plan," said Collins frantically. "Mr. Soros, we should cancel the press conference." "Never," said Soros, standing up. "We'll be more aggressive. We'll accuse Leavitt and Chen of being Trump's puppets, of collaborating with foreign powers." Maddow looked uneasy. "But if there are real audio recordings?" "Audio recordings can be manipulated too," said Soros. "Don't you know that? We're in the age of artificial intelligence." At the White House, Leavitt continued the press conference. Chen stood beside her, answering journalists' questions. "Mr. Chen," asked a Washington Post reporter, "why are you revealing this information now? Why not earlier?" "Because we reached a turning point," said Chen. "In recent months, Soros's operations became more aggressive, more dangerous. I saw plans designed to influence the 2024 elections, and I had to stop it." "What kind of plans?" asked a Fox News reporter. Chen hesitated for a moment, looked at Leavitt. Leavitt nodded. "Soros's team," said Chen, "developed advanced artificial intelligence algorithms to manipulate social media platforms. These algorithms promote content supporting certain political views and hide others. Also, they have psychological profiling systems designed to influence voter behaviors." The room buzzed. This was far more than just a political scandal now. Meanwhile, at the other end of Washington, D.C., in Senator James Hartwell's office, a group of Democratic senators were having a panic meeting. "Audio recordings?" asked Senator Warren, her face pale. "Which meetings were recorded?" "We don't know," said an advisor. "But all of you were at Soros's Aspen meeting in 2022. "Damn," muttered Senator Kelly. "We talked about a lot of things at that meeting." "We should call Soros immediately," said Senator Hartwell. "We need to determine a joint strategy." "Too late," said a press advisor, showing his phone. "Soros is going on air on CNN in 30 minutes. Solo interview." Shocked expressions appeared on the senators' faces. Soros never gave live interviews. At the White House, Leavitt and Chen continued to answer questions. A CBS reporter stood up. "Ms. Leavitt, some think this is politically motivated. They say the Trump administration is targeting Soros. What do you say to that?" Leavitt smiled. "There are those trying to politicize this issue, yes. But the documents speak for themselves. This is not a Republican-Democrat issue. This is a national security issue. If a person or organization is trying to secretly influence the institutions of American democracy, there is no party to that." Chen nodded. "I am not a political figure. I voted for Democrats, but what I saw concerned me. Soros's organizations, even if they work through legal means, aim to overshadow democratic processes." Meanwhile, outside the White House, protesters had begun to gather. One group of Soros supporters carried banners saying, "No to fascism." On the opposite side were banners reading, "Stop Soros." Police were struggling to keep the two groups apart. At 11, at the CNN studio, George Soros sat down in the chair. Opposite him was Anderson Cooper with a tense expression on his face. "Mr. Soros," said Cooper, "this is the first time you're giving such a live interview. Why now?" Soros looked directly at the camera, his eyes determined. "Because the American people need to hear the truth. Yes, I have foundations that support liberal values. Yes, these foundations support reforms in media, academia, and judiciary. But this is not a crime, it's a right. Were secret payments made to people in key positions, as claimed in the documents?" asked Cooper. Soros answered with a small smile. "No payments were secret. All our financial transactions are legal and recorded. Karoline Leavitt and Jack Chen are Trump's puppets. They may be under the influence of foreign powers." Cooper frowned. "That's a serious accusation. Do you have Evidence? Chen was my employee for 5 years, said Soros. He had access to all our systems. He stole and manipulated the documents. Audio recordings, they might have been generated with artificial intelligence. In this technological age, nothing is as it seems. At the same time, in the White House press room, a reporter was asking Leavitt about Soros's statements. Mr. Soros is accusing you and Mr. Chen of being under the influence of foreign powers. Your response? Leavitt smiled. A classic strategy. When you can't answer the accusations, accuse the accuser. All documents are original and verifiable. The audio recordings, too. The Department of Justice and the FBI have already started verifying the authenticity of all these documents. Chen stepped forward. I was one of Soros's most trusted employees for 5 years. Now suddenly I'm a foreign agent? No, I'm just telling the truth. In the CNN studio, Soros was becoming increasingly defensive. As Cooper began to ask about the details of the documents, Soros's answers became more vague. Is the memorandum about the American Transformation Project real? Asked Cooper. Soros hesitated for a moment. The context of that document is very different. By transformation, we mean a more fair, more equal society. But the document says, by the 2024 elections, we aim to control 30% of the judiciary, 60% of mainstream media, and 45% of the federal bureaucracy. This doesn't seem like a democratic process. Soros's facial expression hardened. I didn't write those expressions. Someone from my team might have written them. But it has your signature, said Cooper. Soros suddenly stood up. I want to end this interview here. Your questions are manipulative and biased. Cooper looked surprised. But Mr. Soros, we've just started. No, said Soros, removing his earpiece. This is a trap. This interview is over. And just like Anderson Cooper had fled from the Fox studio last night, now George Soros was leaving the CNN studio. History was oddly repeating itself. Social media exploded instantly. The hashtag, Soros ran away, became a worldwide trend within minutes. Videos, memes, comments filled everywhere. Democratic senators in Washington, D.C. were left looking at each other, not knowing what to do. If even Soros couldn't defend it, how could they? New strategy, said Senator Warren finally. We cut all ties with Soros. We have to save ourselves. By evening, American news channels were talking about nothing else. On Fox News, Laura Ingraham was analyzing what she called the revelation of the century. On MSNBC, a new face was temporarily hosting a program in place of Rachel Maddow. On CNN, Jeff Zucker was making an emergency statement, promising corporate changes. At the White House, President Trump received Leavitt in the Oval Office. Excellent job, Karoline, said Trump, smiling. With a single move, you've turned both Soros and the fake media upside down. Thank you, Mr. President, said Leavitt. But this is just the beginning. The documents Chen gave show other financiers and organizations too. Soros was just the tip of the iceberg. Trump nodded. How deep do you want to go? All the way, said Leavitt, her eyes gleaming with determination. The American people deserve the truth. A week later, the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. launched an official investigation. The FBI raided the offices of the Open Society Foundations. Democratic senators were accused of violating campaign finance laws. A major cleanup began at CNN, MSNBC, and other major media organizations. George Soros returned to his home in Switzerland to wait for the storm to pass. But it was too late now. His empire was falling apart. Jack Chen was placed in a protection program. He began living in a secure location with a new identity. But his story continued to live on as a book and documentary. And Karoline Leavitt? The 27-year-old press secretary became a national hero overnight. She gained millions of followers on social media. Magazines wrote cover stories about her. She began to be referred to by titles like Soros Hunter, Warrior of Truth, Protector of Democracy. 1 year later, the Washington Post's headline read, Leavitt announces candidacy for Congress. 2 years later, she was sworn in as the youngest member of the House of Representatives, and 5 years later, her name was mentioned among potential presidential candidates. It had all started with a single night, a single revelation. Sometimes, history is written by the most unexpected people. On an autumn day in Washington, D.C., Karoline Leavitt, now a member of Congress, stopped in front of the White House and remembered that press conference 5 years ago. That day, she had not only revealed documents but changed a system. A notification came to her phone. A news headline flashed on the screen. George Soros dies at age 99. Leavitt read the news, took a deep breath, and continued on her way. Soros might be gone, but the system itself was still there. And her fight continued. Karoline Leavitt's revelation of George Soros's documents would be remembered not just as a political scandal, but as one of the turning points in American history. The courage of a single person, the determination to tell the truth, could change an entire system. This story reflects the complex relationship between power, money, and politics in modern America. The Soros incident shows the power of the media, the influence of political funding, and the importance of transparency. In today's world, sometimes the truth comes from the most unexpected sources and is defended by the most unexpected heroes. When people asked Leavitt why she did this, risking her career and even her life, her answer was always the same: because the truth is more important than anything. This video was prepared for you. Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for the next story. Follow our channel for more content about Karoline Leavitt and her struggles with America's most powerful people.